questions. It has been quite a journey to transition from what used to live as a 3-module program that lived over 3 weekends of live advanced teacher training instruction. So we got to this point pre-pandemic. We started a group in January of 2020, and we have a guest from that group. Sam is with us today. We were able to do our first module live and in person, and we quickly had to pivot and figure out how to take this program and modify it so that it could be an online learning experience. And this is something that Diana and I had talked about for a long time, trying to figure out, how do we do this? How can we get this information and this training to a larger audience? And we often came up with barriers and roadblocks, but the pandemic kind of forced us to plow through them anyway. So we started, I would say, by speaking with some people who run online training programs. And that's how we figured out how to take the content and make it a meaningful learning experience in this model. So it took some time for us to learn the process, figure out what our options were, and things became really important, like how can you create a sense of community? And how can you still have one-to-one interaction with the students? How can you keep it engaging? How often do you need to take breaks? How much content is too much content at one time? And those became kind of the big points that we used as a framework to figure out how to transition the program. And I'm very grateful to the group of students that we've had through this journey, because they have been vocal and given us feedback about what's worked, what hasn't worked, what they find most meaningful. And that's been really, really helpful. So in real time, we had no choice but to create an online program. And so we're finally at the point where we have taken all 3 modules and transitioned them into a structure that can be offered in this online format. So that feels really exciting and good. And it opens up a lot of new opportunities, I think, down the road for different kinds of offerings in this format. And then also, you know, all of us can't wait to be able to teach live and be live again. But having this kind of training live in an online learning situation, it enables us to spend maybe more live lab time together. And so that's a huge bonus to moving into this format. So let me stop there for a moment and see if there are any questions at this stage of the game to kind of kick it off.
I see nothing coming in yet from the IG Live, but IG Live people, even though you're just looking at our screen, please feel free to drop in your questions. We'd love to have an opportunity to answer them.
So I think what we'll do is just talk a little bit about what the structure looks like that we're offering starting January 2022. We have a larger audience now, so we've had to create different opportunities for people on different time zones, different kinds of schedule to be able to access the training. So we've created 3 different pathways. One is not better than the other. All of them can lead to certification in the 3's Physio Yoga method if that is your end goal. So let me start by explaining what we call our master pathway. So that is a pathway that starts with all our foundational videos and pre-recorded webinars, but it layers on more practical application and conversations in our roundtable discussions. We also have what we call Jigsaw learning events, which is where each student is assigned to bring a piece of the puzzle to the table. We often do this based around case-specific studies. And then as a group, we look at that together. We break out into smaller breakout rooms, have discussions, come up with ideas, come back together, discuss them, do some practice teaching in that model. And so that gives us a lot of opportunity for smaller group interaction as well as the whole cohort discussion. Within the master level program, you also have the opportunity for one-to-one interaction with one of the teachers in our office hours. So we have at least 4 hours scheduled per week where you can schedule a 15-minute or longer appointment to have a conversation about a case that you may have questions about, content that maybe didn't make sense. Maybe you want to discuss how to take one of the themes we talked about and incorporate it into a group class setting. So that gives you the conversation to bring your specific questions to the table. So this master level program is a 6-month journey with a specific cohort, a specific schedule that takes you directly to certification. Now, that schedule may not work for everyone. And so we tried to come up with different ways that you could still achieve the certification. So the practice level is kind of a little less interaction with the group. So you have the same pre-recorded lessons. You'll follow a similar duration of the program, so about 6 months to get through the program. You'll have access to the roundtable discussions, but you won't have the specific assigned pieces where you have feedback and the one-to-one interaction in the office hours. So it enables you to have a less rigid schedule, more flexibility, less time that you have to show up and be part of the group and part of the community and learning during that 6-month period. But let's say you finished that and you were still interested in getting a certification. At that point, you could do our independent study with a mentor program, which would be an additional 3 months. And that would give you the opportunity to do all of the other pieces that the master level did. So it gives you one-to-one interaction with your mentor. You will have assignments with feedback, and it kind of gets you through the rest of the curriculum to the point where you then can be a certified physio yoga teacher. And then lastly, we also wanted to offer the pre-recorded lessons for someone who may be new to 3's physio yoga method, but wants to kind of be introduced and get an idea as to our teaching style and what our offering is. And so that's the train level. And at our train level, you get all the content at one time. You work through it at your own pace. You have no required roundtable discussions or interaction with a group. You have no assignments that are scheduled. And you also have the opportunity to do the certification. So at that point, it would be a 6-month independent study with access to a mentor program. And that would give you the opportunity, again, to have all of the components that the master level had with the cohort, but you have the flexibility of your own schedule, your own interaction with your mentor. And at the end of that 6-month period, you would then be able to become certified in the method. I'll pause there and see if there's any other questions.
Maybe we should talk now about what are the 3 different modules of our training, which have been consistent throughout every time we've run the training since 2016. And like some of the highlights of the things that we teach that are a bit different and unique. And then maybe, Julia, you can chime in at some point about your role after Emily speaks a bit about what she's focusing on in the curriculum. Oh, there's a question from Susan.
Okay.
It's, do any of the pathways qualify as continuing education hours toward fulfilling requirements for PT licensure renewal?
So this specific program that we're discussing today is our program offered for yoga teachers. So it is not credentialed in the PT governing body. We have run a live PT course in the past that was credentialed in New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. That content at this point is not yet online, but we hope to be able to continue to transition into this format and offer programming for our healthcare professionals that will count for continuing education in this online format. But at this point, it's still under construction. All right, so the modules. We have, the 3 modules have been consistent throughout the training. And so our first module starts with an introduction of what is the method. And just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into what is the method is a framework that takes a really deep dive and look at the foundational understanding of anatomy, kinesiology, biomechanics, and it gives you a framework to learn about the systems and then begin to apply your knowledge with lots of room for creativity for you as a teacher to teach in your teaching style with your voice, but you've got a deeper understanding of the why behind the cueing that you're using, or the sequencing that you're using, or the modifications that you're giving. So we start with an introduction and we give a little bit of an overview of some big topics like proprioception, interoception. We talk about the biopsychosocial spiritual approach and the influence that that has on healing and treating the whole person. Then we get into the limbs. So we talk about the lower limb and the upper limb. We take a deep dive into the knowledge foundations, which again is that look into anatomy, kinesiology, the biomechanics of how the body works. And then we move into assessment. So how can we observe movement? And how can we help support and facilitate more optimal movement if need be? And then we talk about restoration. So we talk about what kind of techniques do we as yoga teachers have in our toolbox that we can use to help support these movements. So we do that for the limbs, both lower and upper limb. Then we move into the girdles. We look at the pelvic girdle. We take a lot of time on the girdles, a lot of time on the pelvic girdle, the pelvic floor. We talk about the core and the interaction of these systems of the body. We follow the same kind of themes as far as our knowledge foundations, our assessment, and our restoration. And we do the same thing then for the shoulder girdle. So within each of our modules, we also have Julia's applied anatomy asana practices. And so basically what she helps us do is see how we can take these big themes and teach them in a group class setting. So how do we use the language of science and translate that in a way that makes sense and is meaningful for your group class settings? So we do that in module 1 for each lesson and in module 2 for the girdle lessons. In module 3, we move into the spine. So we follow our themes of our knowledge foundations, our assessment and restoration. We look at what is optimal movement in the spine and what systems interact to create that and how that impacts all the way out to our limbs and how our limbs can in turn impact the spine. So in that third module, we really begin to tie everything together. And again, we look at how can you teach this in the group class setting, and also how can you offer support for a private client in a one-to-one setting.
Before we jump into Julia, I want to just address one question that popped in before if this person is still listening. She's in a different time zone and is wondering if the live chats would work with the group because she is in a different time zone. Do you have any inclination yet on that, Em?
I do. So in that kind of scenario, the practice may be the best offering, because the practice would require the roundtable discussions. And the roundtable discussions are something that we can record and have available. Whereas the Jigsaw learning events require you to be there live because of the small breakouts that we do. So the practice would offer some interaction if she's available to be there at the live time, or she could see the entire conversation in a recorded offering in the classroom.
Perfect. Great. Julia, do you want to share a little bit about what your role is in this current online model of our teacher training?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Just like what Emily said, I'm sort of I guess you could say, the bridge between the content that you're learning and how you implement that in a group class or with your private lessons. So the classes that you'll see me contributing during the training are little movement snippets that include different ways of approaching a concept that we touch on either in all of the modules, and how we would do that movement in a different relationship and space with our body, from the least loaded to the most loaded. So we'll explore a concept starting supine and then progressing to all fours and then to standing. Just really simple, maintaining the focus of the lesson that you just learned from Emily or Diana, and then putting it into play, and then giving you those tools to go and teach that in your class or with your students privately. Yeah, and we work with some props too. So some of the lessons will include some resistance band work, or work with blocks and straps and blankets. And it's just an idea to get your ball rolling and how you would make this content your own, really embody it.
And then Sam, so having made the transition with us, Sam, from being in person, all of us in one room, and Julia there with our breakouts in person, how would you describe how it's been for you online, doing it in this new way with the pre-recorded lessons and the Jigsaw roundtable, but also in the addition of using Julia? How has that affected your learning, if any way?
I've had a great experience with it, and I trusted the method and the teachers, having met everyone in person for that weekend, but I didn't know how an online pivot would be. And I remember being impressed when you first got our cohort together via Zoom and pitched it to us, and you had these beautiful slides, and you had done all this research on the most effective way to learn online, how to synthesize the information, how to layer it on, and how to engage people in the process. So I've actually really appreciated being able to, I like structure. I like, in our case, new lessons would drop monthly, and the calendar may be slightly different for the upcoming groups, but it's been nice having being able to pace myself to some extent, but still having the overall structure as an anchor, like to keep me on pace. And then I really completely exploited the office hours. I just really having a chance to speak with somebody one-on-one, ask my questions, and just engage that way, develop that relationship with someone who's a seasoned PT and yoga teacher has been invaluable. I think I got more one-on-one time than I would have with the group. The Jigsaw events have been great, using the breakout rooms and pairing up with different people. You always learn the most when you're benefiting from your classmates' perspective and their experiences. So I feel like that's where, jumping in live, discussing these case studies, that's been having access to Julia, having these video, I guess this would apply to people going forward in the master level group, but having these assignments where you're recording yourself teaching a segment of a class, or analyzing a case study, or creating your own imagined case. That's where I find that the material really comes to life. And then Julia's been terrific about getting feedback on the videos. So there's been a really nice bridging between being able to consume and absorb the information on my own, which I like. And then once I've had a certain level of study or experience with it, then being able to go back to the group and clarify and organize and articulate it. Because if you're, it's the teaching it, it's the speaking out loud about it that really takes the knowledge to the next level, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's probably the toughest part, I think, for us to recreate. Well, that was one of the hardest parts we worked on anyway, to recreate the feel of being in the classroom with people, I'd say, is that that feedback, that trying on of language, the play, the exploration of really just like getting your feet wet and just, trying on new language and trying it on in different ways in front of different people and in different scenarios, in that safe space. So
I would just add, and I know you'll address your question in a different way, but I noticed that the second part of one of Susan's questions is, what's the benefit for me to become certified in the method? And for me, completing all of those additional steps with the mentorship, really being required to teach and use the language and get through the awkwardness of something that you can understand and maybe take a quiz on, but being able to absorb it and then communicate it in a way that actually benefits somebody else. It's that level of practice that really, I think, allows for mastery. And then on a practical level, one thing that we had, which I hope will continue, is one of our roundtables was bringing in a physio yoga professional and talking about bridging between your education here and your place in the marketplace, if you're looking to at least earn part of your living teaching this. And he pointed out that you certainly want to be able to differentiate yourself. It's an oversaturated market, so having this degree of specialized or really quality training is a good way to do that. And it's a conversation starter, as he pointed out, saying, I'm a physio yoga teacher. It's something that piques people's interest and sets you apart.
Yeah, I can speak, same Samantha, from my experience. I took the training, the second one back in 2016, I believe it was. And since then, I've been able to grow my business and expand as a physio yoga teacher. And I feel like I have much more value and there's more weight behind my teachings and offerings because of the training. I was educated by physical therapists, and I have this knowledge in science, and the offering is based in science, and it's safe and accessible for all different bodies and types of people, whether you're injured or trying to mitigate injury, etc. So it's been really fantastic, and the way that the training is built is so progressive and digestible, and you really get a chance to absorb the material and work with it over time.
Oh, and I can honestly, and then I'll stop talking, but I can honestly say that taking Julia's classes, she offered in a resistance band yoga class that was, I think, inspired and informed greatly by physio yoga. And that was one of the things that really piqued my interest and sold me on the training, seeing it in a practical way. I just thought it was so interesting and smart and unlike anything else I had ever done. It just kind of expanded my sense of what was possible in this sort of overlapping Venn diagram, the center of the Venn diagram between PT and yoga. So I'm Team Julia.
I do want to speak to the fact that we have had healthcare professionals do this teacher training program. And actually currently right now we have a physical therapist in our group. And I think that adds so much value to the learning experience, because the PT in the group is learning so much more about how to use yoga therapeutically. And the yoga teachers in the group are learning a lot about understanding the PT's perspective and kind of how they look at movement, how they may approach working in a one-to-one setting. So I just think it adds such richness to the community, having both healthcare professionals and yoga teachers together in the training, coming from different sides and really honestly bridging that gap, figuring out how they can come together and work together and speak the same language to help support the students.
Susan is a PT. She's an experienced PT, who's also a yoga teacher, and so she's looking to add to her training. And you just started talking about that, but we have had several PTs who are also yoga teachers join our training. And what I'm trying to bring myself back to when they were in our trainings and some of the things that they've told us. And what they step away with is sort of, when you're a PT and also a yoga teacher, it can feel a little bit overwhelming when you're standing in front of a patient and you're like, well, I have all these PT tools I could use and I have all these yoga tools I can use, and which ones should I use and when should I use them and how should I apply a PT tool and then a yoga tool? And I think what's integral into our method is how to weave the yoga and the mindful awareness and interoception into the PT, but also how to weave the PT into the yoga. It's almost like they've become very inseparable in phys yoga. I feel like the creation of phys yoga by us in our method was really merging and melding these two. So you no longer have two sets of toolboxes, a PT and a yoga toolbox. You have either PT through the lens of yoga or yoga through the lens of PT toolbox. And I think through the training and through taking the time through each module, you become immersed in this new language and you begin applying it. That's really, it's not one or the other anymore.
And I think that really becomes apparent from your first interaction with the client. So your examination, your questionings, the way you do a physical exam, you start to shift the lens a bit and really approach it with this kind of merging of the two practices.
We have a follow-up question here, and it's about if this training is for yoga teachers, experienced yoga teachers, and then if so, which it is for yoga teachers, absolutely, but PTs also attend, if that's not clear, what level of anatomy knowledge, for example, is required for entry into the training? So again, just to clear it up, the training is primarily for yoga teachers. However, we've had several PTs who are also yoga teachers train with us in the past, which has been a success. But in terms of yoga teacher requirements, Em.
Yes, the application criteria is to have your 200-hour teacher training program. It's wonderful if you're enthusiastic about learning more about anatomy, kind of bringing that deeper flavor of science to the way that you teach. We do, in our introductory lesson, review anatomical terminology and directional terminology and start to teach that or refresh that if you've had that before. But I would say it can be intense if you haven't had a lot of exposure to anatomy. But there is a lot of support and a lot of time to work through that and be supported in that as you learn that new language and get more familiar with it. Yes, I'm going to stop there.
Good. Yeah, I think, I compare it often with learning a new language. And initially it feels like a lot of new information as we really try to stay consistent with using words like proximal, distal, medial, lateral. We start to talk in planes, sagittal, frontal, because we really want to sort of immerse you in this new language experience. However, we'll never leave anyone in the dust either. It's always, that's what the office hours are for. That's what the team of teachers is for. There's always the opportunity to catch up if you feel like you're falling back. But it is an immersive language experience. And
And I
that's
think that's one of the benefits that end up setting you apart in the saturated market is you may not teach your classes using all that terminology, but you understand it. You can communicate your findings in that language. You can read research articles that may use language like that. You can look up different terminology and gain a greater understanding of what that means. So I think it's really empowering for our students when they finish the program to have this new language and skill set.
Yeah. And it
Sam,
does.
can you speak to that for a moment?
I mean, I would say that you do a nice job of bridging between the more, I mean, the anatomy and physiology is dense, but the point of the training is not to teach you how to teach like an academic or in a didactic way. It's still, you need the base of knowledge, and you may use that in your life or in your teaching or research, however you choose. But you're also practicing how to communicate that and apply it in a way that feels relevant and embodied for whoever you're teaching. So it's not, you're not going to take all of that information and pour it into a single class or a single client or student. There's practical, Julia's portions where she teaches 20-minute or 30-minute classes, and that's embedded in a bunch of slides and video content to keep things balanced between what is can be technical and cerebral, but what is applicable to life. And I would say that learning about the so learning about as you referenced, the biopsychosocial model, that we learn how to take into account, particularly in work certainly with private clients, the full picture of a person. I'm not a PT. I have done PT in the past and found it quite useful, but I think the critique that can be fair depending on the individual practitioner is that, well, you're given a set of a couple of exercises, do X reps, X times a week. It feels kind of separate from life. I don't know. I think this teaches you how to teach your students give them a degree of autonomy and how to move safely through the world, not just in doing exercises or however much time you spend with them during the course of the week.
Yeah, and each module breaks down the body into smaller parts, individual pieces. But at the end of the training, you understand how everything is so connected, and you really get a chance to look at the whole body and the function of everything together, which gives you a better understanding of your body as a whole with all of these individual parts also that work by themselves, but together. And the concepts, the more that you hear them throughout the training, which they're repeated quite frequently, and the more that you have the chance to teach them and practice, it's so easy to capture and to translate into your classes, like one thing at a time. For example, we talk about the tripod hand or the tripod foot, and just starting with one piece of material that you're learning in the training and maybe developing a class on that and sticking with that for a month, or working with your pivots on that until you really embody it, is really good. And yeah, all these couple of years later that I finished the training now, it's just as even deeper and deeper into my teaching where it's like second nature.
Julia, how do you teach differently from 2017 to now? And can you speak on that and how that's sort of related to your foundational knowledge in Physioga?
Mm-hmm. I definitely have a way better understanding of the body and how it functions. And I'm applying that to the asana practice. So instead of making shapes or doing creative transitions, which I like to do and like to make things dancey and flowy, everything relates back to a certain theme. So I've had much easier time in picking, let's say, one part of the body, like the shoulder, and then developing a whole class on that, how to center the ball in the socket and then move through range of motion safely with stability and mobility, and then take that into something like a down dog or even a handstand practice. And I've also been able to work with my clients and my students in a much deeper way rather than just like trying to fit them into a shape. I really have the knowledge from the phys yoga training to help the shape fit them. That makes sense. So working with the body in the way that they need to be for their own anatomy and their own issues or injuries, etc., to have the practice be accessible and suitable for them.
Yeah, I think that's a huge goal of ours, is to make the yoga fit the person, not the person fit the yoga.
Absolutely.
Susan asked earlier what the price difference is on the practice or pre-recorded lessons. And I think also we can mention regarding the certification, in addition to, being able to, so if you go through the master level training, you do get certified at the end. And what that does is it does give you the opportunity to have all of the hand-holding, the one-on-one, the community interaction. And then the certification also allows you to be credentialed and placed on our website of other certified professionals, which we often refer, I'll refer patients to, I'll refer PTs and PT clinics to when they're looking for someone to teach them or their patients yoga. So it does sort of afford you the opportunity for standing out, but also being a resource for people that's differentiated because you've trained with a team of physical therapists. And it's a referral source for private clients and for people to seek you out for safe yoga classes if they are, trying to return to yoga after injury, or just trying to go to a yoga class that potentially will help them prevent injury in yoga. So you'll be part of our directory, and then you'll also have access to anything that we do in the future for graduates. Emily can speak a little bit more, I think, to that, to the graduates.
Yes, I can also, answer a little bit of the pricing question too. So we are still in our early bird pricing right now, which will expire November 12th. So Susan, specifically for the practice level, which is giving you access to the roundtable discussions, that is $1,785 as the early bird pricing. And the train is $1,190. So that's the difference between those two. Now, during this time period, we do have consecutive monthly payments available. So it does not have to be all paid in full right now, but as we get closer, all payments will be completed by January 10th, and the programs will go live on January 12th. So there are different options available. You could pay in full, or you could do the consecutive monthly payments. And again, early bird is going on until November 12th. And Diana mentioned the graduate access. So we are looking to continue to grow our online offerings, and we'll have what's called our Graduate Academy. And so as we move our content into this online format, those that have completed the certification will be able to take our graduate level courses. And some examples of things that we may dive into are getting more specific into the use of props and bands. Potentially they would be client specific, like post-surgical clients. So maybe after a total joint replacement, maybe something more specific to an aging population. So we're looking forward to creating some new content and having some offerings for our graduates to help support our community and spread our phys yoga practice. I know that we received a question previously about being credentialed with the Yoga Alliance, and we are not currently, so our program is not part of the Yoga Alliance programming at this point.
Mm-hmm. But we sort of go above and beyond the Yoga Alliance credentials for being certified through Yoga Alliance. I'm looking at the questions too, Em.
Yes, let's see if anything else came in.
How long will you have access to the platform under train?
So as it's set up right now, you'll have access for a 2-year period for the train program. So as you register for the train program, you would get access to all that content at one time, and that access would remain available for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are there tests?
There are tests, and there are what we call knowledge checks. There are quizzes available for all 3 pathways. At the end of a pre-recorded lesson, you will have what we call a knowledge check, which is a 10-question quiz that gives you the opportunity to check your knowledge on the content that you just went through for the pre-recorded lesson. Those knowledge checks are a great piece of the puzzle to bring to office hours. If you have access to office hours, it's great to go over those questions that you may have missed, or maybe were unclear or you were uncertain about. I really love that opportunity to spend office hours going through the knowledge checks. At the end of the training, you also have a final examination. So that's a cumulative test that will go through the content that was covered in all the modules. I think it's about 20 questions. So, it's not hours worth of cumulative exam, but it's a nice opportunity for you to see, where you need to dive a little bit deeper into gaining more understanding, what maybe you had forgotten that you covered in the beginning. So it's a nice way to just kind of litmus test where you are.
Another question from the Instagram. Is there a detailed schedule available? This person is interested in the timing of live sessions because they're based in Europe and would try to fit it in their schedule, and they're working full time.
Yes. So on our website, on each page, so the train page, the practice page, or the master page, which you can access right from our website, the schedule is located at the bottom of those pages. So it gives exact date and exact time, Eastern Standard Time, of when any live events would be held. And as I mentioned, we record everything that is available to be recorded. It's honestly the live Jigsaw learning events that are unable to be captured in a recording.
Those are so great though, the ones we've done. I feel like we should talk through a quick overview of what one of them was. Because I think that's a really unique learning piece, which really forces, it's not a regurgitation, it's more of like a real practical application of knowledge live with people.
Yeah, we can talk through. We did 2 different models. Let's think about the pelvic floor that we did. So we assigned 3 different articles related to pelvic floor in fitness, or pelvic floor in yoga, or pelvic floor in physical therapy. And it was talking about some of the issues that may arise, both in men and women. So we pre-assigned these articles to different groups. They were responsible for reading them and then bringing the information back to the group. Then we tasked partners with a specific kind of case-based scenario to talk through. And then they came back to the large group and shared their goal and their plan moving forward with that case. And then we usually break out again and have the opportunity to talk about how you would progress this particular client, and then come back as a group and really highlight the big themes that we covered collectively. So it's a nice way for everybody's voice to be heard and everybody's perspective. It also gives the students an opportunity to study in advance and bring something to the table. It's a great opportunity to ask questions on these larger topics. How would I even approach the languaging around pelvic floor health? So it just creates a safe space to have these conversations and arms our students with tools that they can walk away with and begin to implement right away into their teaching.
Yeah, I think what's nice about it is you do, like you said, you do get to play with it. You get to focus on things that you may or may not hear a lot in the world, like about potential pelvic floor issues or whatever region of the body, like things you're hearing about, things people are talking about, things your students are complaining about, things that are popping up as trends. And you have to sort of dive into the science behind, over gripping of the pelvic floor or over Kegling and what these things really do, and then apply that knowledge to a person, a made up person, and understanding and sort of decoding where that's all coming from, but then taking it piece by piece and building out a plan for that person, and then actually getting to try out parts of your plan and teaching parts of your plan to people live. I think it's really awesome. All right, I'm going to see if we have any other future questions. And if we don't, I think we should just sort of recap with key dates, that there's a lot of threes. There's 3 modules, but there's also 3 different ways to train with us or to learn with us. And then just let people know that if they have any other future questions, who they can ask.
Okay, great. All right. So let's start with key dates. So Early Bird is ending November 12th. Our next course will begin on January 12th. That cohort will go from January to June. So yes, as Diana said, we've got 3 different modules. We've got 3 different themes within our modules, and we've created 3 different pathways for you to choose the learning style that works best for you, choose the schedule that works best for you. One program does not hold more value than another. Each opportunity gives you a pathway to achieve certification if that is your goal. So it just really comes down to, does the schedule for the master level fit for you? And is that the program that you want to be in a cohort community-based learning with? And if that schedule doesn't work for you, then the practice may be another more flexible offering. And the train may really offer the self-paced learning that fits best for your lifestyle or your learning style. So our goal was to create lots of options for you to have access to the content, and then different layers of support and interaction for your learning style.
Yeah.
If you have more questions, the best way to ask those questions and to get our responses is to email us at education@threesphysioyoga.com. And that is the email that is on our webpage that describes the teacher training program and each of the different pathways. So email us, we'd be happy to answer your questions, and we look forward to seeing you.